Hi, seventh grade. Welcome back. Today is Monday, and today we're going to be looking at the exit tickets. We're going to be working with a News Daily article, and we're also going to be working on context clues. Um, we're also going to continue doing this tomorrow. Tuesday and Wednesday, you have your quiz that's going to focus on the beginning of the Renaissance and also have context clues section. So you'll have two quizzes on Wednesday that'll have both of that. Let's go for these exit tickets. So the goal was to get a 7 or higher. So 15, 12, 13, 13, and 16. Only 90 students took the exit ticket, which is a little concerning. So if you got lower than a 7, take your time, okay? Here you go. So this is a question that came from the previous day. This is asking you what to look at the map. Where is the Where's Italy? Where the Renaissance starts? And a number of students are still getting this question wrong. Italy is number 5. Okay, the easiest way to remember is by looking at the boot. That's the easiest way to remember it. This question will appear in your exit ticket today as well. Okay, let's keep looking at this. What does John Green argue that the why does John Green argue that the Renaissance did not happen? Select that are correct. Because most people during the Renaissance didn't benefit from it. That's one of his arguments, that most people continue to live in as farmers, continue to live as farmers. They didn't benefit from it. They weren't impacted from it. He said that it's something that modern society has created because there were so many inventions and amazing people during this time. But during the Renaissance, most people did not benefit from it. And then he also said because society didn't really change from the medieval period to the Renaissance period, most people still lacked access to education. Most people still lived in farms. Which of the following is true about the Renaissance? Okay, people began to question the past and challenge old ideas. People began to question science that was already had been established for hundreds of thousands of years. People began to try to celebrate humans' place in the world. Um, yeah, it wasn't just about religion. Place a value on learning and education, um, and was heavily influenced by the classical period. Okay, true or false? The Medici's family is known as the godfathers of the Renaissance. The answer is true. This came from the reading that I did. They're known as the godfathers because they're kind of like the people that funded the Renaissance. Most Renaissance buildings look like classical buildings. John Green said in his video, he said that when you look at a Renaissance building, you don't know if you're looking at a Renaissance or a classical building because they look so much alike. We're going to focus on on a little bit of that today, but not much. The Renaissance was a blend. This is a really important question. The Renaissance was a blend of classical ideas with religious ideas. The answer is true. A lot of a lot of the things that come out of the Renaissance are religious, right? But they also have classical influences on them. For example, if you look at especially if you look at Michelangelo's work, Michelangelo's David looks like a Greek god. The statue looks like a Greek god. It's very similar to what a statue would look like in the classical period, but it is not a classical period piece. It's from the Renaissance, and he is King David from the Bible. So you see how he blends in Bible ideas with classical ideas of celebrating the human body, of making things realistic. Which of the following is credited with impacting the development of the Renaissance in Europe? Now, I'm really confused by some of these answers, right? The Chinese might make sense, right? Because the people of the Renaissance traded with them, okay? But the Aztecs is wrong, right? The Aztecs lived in the New World. Most people in the Renaissance did not know about the Aztecs. The Aztecs are a completely different civilization, and maybe the reason why students keep picking the Aztecs is because I keep putting it there. People are like, must be right, or because that was our previous unit. But the Aztecs had zero impact on the development of the Renaissance. It is the Muslims that had an impact because the Muslims were the ones that kept a lot of this classical knowledge alive, and the Muslims were the ones that traded with the Europeans at this time. Why was Cosimo the first considered a humanist? Because he had a strong belief. Remember, humanism has to do with believing in human power, human ability, belief in the value of individual human beings. If a if a work is secular, if a book is secular, or if a painting is secular, if a statue is secular, that means that it is not religious. When something is secular, it means not religious. Um, Writing during the Middle Ages was mostly done in Latin. During the Renaissance, people began to write Latin, and this is a key word here, to write in language that people could actually read. This means it was written in the vernacular, in the language that people can read. Okay, I understand why some people might have picked humanist because humanism values human achievements, but that's not what the question is asking. The question is, or the prompt is talking about the language that people can read. Okay, based on the video, how did trade help develop the Renaissance? So there was a lot of great answers in this one, but there were a couple of them that were incomplete. So trade allowed Italian city-states to become very, very wealthy, which they used to pay for artists, painters, sculptors, architects, engineers. Okay, that's one reason. The second reason is trade brought in new ideas from the outside world. So two things, money and ideas. Okay, let's start with this. Again, this video is going to be, I don't know how long this video is going to be, but it's going to be quite long because we have a lot to do. So this comes from Newsela. I'm gonna work with you guys on this one. Okay, so this is the Michelangelo's David, by the way. This is one of the most famous statues in the world. This is Renaissance humanism blended in with religious ideas. Why? Because this guy he appears in the Bible. He appears in the Old Testament. He is the king of the Jews. He kills the Goliath. He is he's very important in the Bible. His name is King David. But you see how Michelangelo blends religion, this guy, with classical ideas, right? This statue looks like a Roman or Greek statue. It is very realistic, right? It focuses on human power, human beauty, human form. It has ideas of anatomy here, where Michelangelo creates a statue that is very anatomically realistic. It looks like a real person, and we're gonna be focusing on this statue a lot in the future because I do want you to understand how he blends classical ideas with religion. Okay, so this is King David, the David by Michelangelo. Towards the end, I'm gonna pick a different color. So these words that I highlighted in red: barbarous, flaunted, endowed. Those words we're gonna use context clues to figure out the meaning of those words. So I'm gonna pick a different color because I want to make sure that you remember those words. Towards the end of the 1300s, a handful of Italian thinkers declared that they were living in a new age. Right? The barbarous. Barbarous. So what does barbarous mean? Let's look at some of the context clues. Unenlightened. See here they gave you kind of like a definition for. They gave you another not a definition, a synonym, right? Barbarous and unenlightened are the same. So here they gave you a synonym. Unenlightened means someone that is not smart, someone that is kind of like a barbarian. Here, barbarous, someone that is not cultured, someone or something that lacks knowledge. So barbarous means that unenlightened. The barbarous, unenlightened Middle Ages were over. The new age will be a Rinascita. This is Italian. This is an Italian word, or rebirth of learning and literature, arts and culture. This was the birth of the period known as the Renaissance. In Spanish, if you know Spanish, Renaissance means renacimiento. For centuries, scholars agree that Italian Renaissance, which also means rebirth, began that simply. But you'll see that it's not that simple, right? That between 1300s and 1600s, a new modern way of thinking about the world and man's place in it replaced an old backwards one. Okay, so before the Renaissance, man was not the center of life, it was religion. Here it says a new modern way of thinking about the world and man's place in it. was replaced by an old backwards one. In fact, the Renaissance in Italy and other parts of Europe was considered more complicated than that. So it's not just that simple. In many ways, the period we call the Renaissance was not so different from the era that preceded. Look what they're saying here. It says, in many ways, the period you call the Renaissance was not so different from the Middle Ages, kind of like what John Green said, that the Renaissance was just a continuation of the Middle Ages. However, many of the scientific, artistic, and cultural achievements of the Renaissance do share common themes or common ideas, most notably the humanistic belief that man was the center of his own universe. Okay, here we go. Italy in the 1400s was unlike any other place in Europe. So, Italy, the boot. It was divided into independent city states, each with a different form of government, right? Remember, Italy was divided into different states, uh, different regions. Today, if you go to Italy, Italy is still divided into different cities and states or whatever, but it is a unified country. Okay, here's the grand papa of them all. Florence, where the Italian Renaissance began, was an independent republic. It was also a banking and commercial capital of the third largest city in Europe. Question here, I wonder what the other cities, what were the two largest cities? I'm guessing it might have been London, probably. Okay, Florence, where the Italian Renaissance began, was an independent republic. It was also a banking and commercial means trade, capital of and the third largest city in Europe. Here's another word I want you to figure out. Wealthy Florentines. Florentines are people that live in Florence. Wealthy Florentines flaunted. What does flaunt mean? Their money and power by becoming patrons who funded the work of artists and intellectuals. So, flaunted has to do with money and showing off power. But they're doing this by becoming patrons. So people that flaunt their money are people that show off their money, right? Wealthy Florentines showed off their money and power by becoming patrons who funded the work of artists and intellectuals. In this way, the city became the cultural center of Europe and of the Renaissance. This is a really this painting right here. It's I'm gonna come back to it in a second, okay? Thanks. Okay, so the new humanism, cornerstone of the Renaissance. Thanks to the patronage. Remember, patron, a person that provides money and income to an artist's sculpture, and in return they create something for them. Thanks to the patronage of these wealthy elites, Renaissance era writers and thinkers no longer had to work at ordinary jobs or join a monastery. Monastery where monks are religious people. Instead, they could enjoy worldly pleasures. They traveled around Italy. These are the people that are being paid by these wealthy people, studying ancient ruins and rediscovering Greek and Roman texts, the classics. These are called the classics. To Renaissance scholars and philosophers, these classical sources held great wisdom. So they were constantly in search of these books, this knowledge, because it has great wisdom according to them. They're non-religious. Here's a word. Non-religious. Remember this word? Secular. Their non-religious or secular nature, their appreciation of physical beauty. This is a good one. Physical beauty. Physical beauty. Perfect example of physical beauty. And especially their emphasis on man's own achievements formed the principle of the Italian Renaissance. This philosophy is known as humanism. So I'm gonna erase some of these. This red one here. So, oh gosh. Okay, so humanism um, focuses on non-religious nature. Not always, right? Because remember, they do blend religious ideas, right? Physical beauty, emphasis on man's own achievements. That is humanism. Humanism encouraged people to be curious and question, and to question receive wisdom. So humanists did not simply accept knowledge, they challenged it. It's kind of like what students do, right? They challenge ideas, they challenge knowledge sometimes. Um, particularly that of the Catholic Church. So humanists are beginning to push back against the Catholic Church. Okay? It also encouraged people to use experimentation and observation to solve earthly problems. As a result, many Renaissance intellectuals focus on trying to define and understand the laws of nature and the physical world. So, a lot of people in the Renaissance began to create these experiments, um, create these science ideas to try to understand the world and not necessarily take the word of the church or establish wisdom. One of the most important, or one of the most, I think, interesting experiments is if you drop two objects from a certain height, they should fall at the same time. The church said, yes, oh no, the heavy object should fall first, right? The church said, yes, heavy objects fall first because they base that knowledge on certain misconceptions. And you'll see that people begin to create experiments that prove the church is wrong. People begin to actually do this on their own. For example, here's one of them. For example, Renaissance artist Leonardo da Vinci, which we're going to focus on later, created detailed scientific studies of objects ranging from flying machines to submarines. He also carried out pioneering studies of human anatomy. He studied the human body. The scientist and mathematician Galileo Galilei investigated investigated one natural law after another. Here's the example that I was coming up with, and we're going to see it later. By dropping different sized cannonballs from the top of a building, he proved that all objects fall at the same rate of acceleration. Right? So this is counterintuitive. It means it goes against your own your own ideas of what is right or what is wrong. If you drop a feather, and I'll put the link in that puzzle. If you drop a feather from a building and a cannonball, they should fall at the same time, but they don't, right? What is the reason they don't? It has to do with air resistance. But Galileo proved that no matter the weight of the object, they should fall at the same time. And I'll post a link of an experiment that was done not too long ago. And that goes against the church. Galileo also proved that not everything goes around the earth. He proved that against going against the church, he proved that not everything in space is a perfect round ball, right? He found craters on the moon, and he published them. And as a result, he got in a lot of trouble because he was putting work out that went against what the Catholic Church was teaching. Galileo also built a powerful telescope. It actually wasn't powerful, but it was, better than what they had. He used it to show that the Earth and other planets revolved around the sun and not as religious authorities argue the other way around, right? In the time of Galileo, people believed that the sun went around the Earth, that the moon went around the Earth, the planets went around the Earth, and he found examples that disproved that. He found moons around, I don't know, Jupiter, I think it was, or one of these planets. He proved that these moons were going around that planet and not around us. For this, Galileo was arrested and threatened with torture and death. But he refused to deny what he knew to be true. He said, I do not believe that the same God who has endowed us, what does endowed mean? With senses, reason, and intellect has intended us to forget their use. So let's try that again. I do not believe that the same God who gave us this, this, and this. So endowed means gave. Okay. Perhaps the most important technological development of the Renaissance took place in Germany. In the middle of the 1400s, Johann Gutenberg invented the mechanical moving type printing press. For the first time, it was possible to make books, and by extension, knowledge widely available. So, as a result of the printing press, books were much cheaper, right? People were able to create books much faster, and that means that people were able to have more access to education or books. During the Italian Renaissance, art was everywhere. Patrons such as Florence Medici family sponsored projects, large and small. Successful artists became celebrities in their own right, like Da Vinci, Michelangelo. Renaissance artists and architects applied many humanistic principles to their works. For example, the architect Filippo Brunelleschi, you will need to know this guy, used the elements of classical Roman architecture. shapes, columns, and especially proportions in his own buildings. He built a magnificent eight-sided dome. This dome. Okay. This is a classical idea. The Romans were huge on domes. He built a magnificent eight-sided dome at Santa Maria del Fiore Cathedral in Florence, which was an engineering triumph. It was 140 feet, 144 feet across, and weighed 37,000 tons. Brunelleschi also devised a way to draw and paint using linear perspective. That is, he figured out how to paint from the viewpoint of the person looking at the painting. I'll show you an example right now. Certain straight lines were made to the point towards the center of the image. So linear perspective, I'm going to highlight it here, is simply, you see how this image, linear perspective simply means depth, right? Or a sense of three dimensions. So if you look at this image, this is a Renaissance image, you can tell that these people are behind the people in the front. And then you can tell these people are behind that person, these people. Okay, you can tell that this building is behind these people. So linear perspective makes an image much more realistic. It is a sense of three dimensions, a sense of depth. Okay, that's a vanishing point back there. Vanishing point. Okay, it is just a sense of perspective, and we're going to talk about it once we get to that unit or to that topic. So we talked about the Renaissance. You'll have some questions on your exit ticket from this reading. And then I don't know if we'll have enough time. Actually, we will. Okay, so let's practice some context clues. The shrew is a little animal, is a tiny mouse-like mammal. This has nothing to do with the Renaissance. We're just practicing context clues. The shrew is a tiny mouse-like mammal with an elevated metabolic rate. Metabolic, I think, has to do with like the heart rate. In the space of just 1 minute, it breathes about 800 times, and its heart beats about 1,000 times. The shrew is voracious. I forgot to show you guys this. Remember, context clues, sometimes they give you a definition. Mr. Fry is affable. Affable means he is a pleasantly and easy to approach and always friendly. They might give you a synonym. Mr. Fry is quite affable. In fact, he reminds me of Mrs. Baker. Do you remember how kind she was? So affable and kind are synonyms, means they mean the same thing. They might give you a clue by giving you the opposite of it, so you'll be able to figure out what the word is. I miss Mr. Fry. Our new principal is cranky. You see how they gave you an opposite? And unapproachable. Mr. Fry was affable. So they miss him because he was affable. The new principal is cranky. An example, Mr. Fry is affable principal. He knows everybody's name. If you have a problem, talk to him. So this is also an inference. And here's the inference. You don't need to worry about talking to Mr. Fry. He is an affable principal. So you are able to infer that he's actually someone that you can easily talk to, like come up to. So always remember this, okay? I'll give you guys this on your quiz so that you have it for to help you out. Let's continue doing this. Okay, so the shoe. The shoe is also voracious, right? We can't just by if the sentence ended here, we wouldn't know what voracious means. But they give you something else. Every day it eats its entire body weight in prey such as insects, worms, and salamanders. So what does voracious mean? Select the word that means a huge appetite. Voracious, right? This is the question. If something has a huge appetite, voracious is the one because it says it eats its entire body weight. It's kind of like a person that weighs 140 pounds. If they eat 140 pounds worth of food every day, that person is voracious. Okay, here's another one. Select the word that means very noisy and lively. Lively means noisy, kind of like loud. Okay, for robotics competitions, teams spend weeks designing their robots and programming them to do battle against competitors' robots. Someone might think, maybe this one because they're battling. Well, let's keep looking. The resulting robot games are often boisterous, right? Boisterous. Watching their creation perform against each other, the human competitors don't hold back. right? Boisterous. You can make an inference here that they don't hold back in whooping and cheering. So boisterous means loud. Here's the last one we're gonna do. Scientists have found, this is a completely different topic. Scientists have found that bilinguals have many advantages over people who grow up hearing only one language. So what does bilingual mean then? Right? Scientists have found that bilinguals have many advantages over people who grow up only hearing one language. So if you grow up hearing only one language, that's the opposite of bilingual, right? And so bilingual means two languages. Okay. In a 2004 study, for example, participants performed better on certain mental puzzles than their monolingual counterparts. Mono means one, bi means two. It is believed that people who are bilingual are so adept at solving problems because their brains have developed differently. These differences reveal through brain scans and experiments enhance their concentration, allowing them to complete some tasks with greater ease. Bilingualism seems to influence the brain across the span of a person's life. Differences first present themselves during infancy when they're babies. Studies have found that babies exposed to two languages from birth can acclimate to new situations, quickly responding to changes in their environment faster than those raised with only one language. So when you acclimate, means that you respond to changes in their environment faster than those raised with one language. Other studies have found that bilingualism provides advantages in old age as well. Bilingual adults tend to experience memory loss at a later age compared to monolingual adults. What is the meaning of acclimate as used in the passage? So the easiest way to do this is just try all of them, okay? What is the meaning of acclimate used in the passage? So let's try A. Studies have found that babies exposed to two languages from birth can commit to new situations. I don't know. I don't think that's correct one. Let's look at adjust. Studies have found that babies exposed to two languages from birth can adjust or be able to work with that system to new situations quickly. If you adjust, you are responding to changes in their environment faster than those raised in with one language. So the answer is adjust. So this is the context clue that we use for that. When you're able to respond to changes in your environment faster. Select the text. So that's this one right here. Okay. That's the video. You have some questions for the Renaissance. You have some context clue questions as well. And then we'll do this again on Tuesday, and then Wednesday you have your quiz. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.